I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:30. Roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Here.
Freehand is here. Mr. Boda?
Here.
Mr. Petsalas?
Here.
Mr. Horn?
Here.
Mrs. Babel?
Here.
And Mr. Blackstock?
Here.
All present.
Okay. Would you follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty. Next, we're going to move on to the open public hearing for the proposed 2020 budget. Should be in your packet. We have copies up there at the table if anybody wants to look at it, or is anybody here to discuss the budget, or is there all other things? What's that? There should be copies there. Is there copies up there somewhere?
No, there's just this meeting agenda. There's just waivers in the sign-in sheet.
Need a motion to open public hearing.
I guess we need a motion to open the public hearing first.
I'll make a motion. We open the public hearing at 7:31.
I support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported that we open the public hearing for the 2020 budget. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is now open. Well, we have it in our packet here.
Larry, was the only change we made was the matching money?
Yes, on the capital side. It still leaves our budget is reduced. Yeah,
Yeah, they were down.
that's the capital, yeah. She put that in front of us. We raised it up to cover the 25% match for the lift station on Springborn Road if we get the grant, which it looks like we are in a good position to get the grant. And if we don't get the grant, then we're going to have to amend the budget and
Take
take
that money
money
out.
out of the general fund to do it anyways.
Okay.
So it's not like we're speculating on getting the grant. Marie, did you want a copy of that, or is that what you're looking for?
Well, sure, if you're having it open for public.
No, we'll have to get you one. Do we have any copies of that? I thought Wendy was putting them out there.
Yeah, I thought so too. I'm not aware. I can make a copy.
She can ask mine, I'll look at yours.
Trying to see what, yeah, you got one?
I have to go make a copy.
Okay. Does anybody else like one?
This is the one we had the workshop on.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, we had a workshop before the last meeting. This is what I did with mine.
This, her report is sitting in front of
Right.
me.
That's where I got it. Too much stuff.
Yeah. I'm killing trees.
And if we decide to adopt it, then you'll make a resolution up.
There is a resolution.
I mean, when we get back to the regular meeting.
You have a resolution.
Didn't we have it in our packet, though? I thought I read it into.
So then be one.
Oh, that's when we go to a regular open meeting. Oh, here it is.
Okay, that's 1A.
As far as the budget, I mean, our operating is down. Capital projects is up a little bit. We have two bonds out there, the 2013A and 2013B that we're still paying on. And then we have the water plant bond, which is 1999, which is dropping immensely because it'll be paid off next year. So overall, the tax levy to the township will be reduced, mainly because of that 99 bond. I don't know if anybody else has any questions on it. Does the board have any questions on it? I'll see what we're doing here. And as you can see, it's a little different format than what we've done in the past, how the budget's going to be presented. So does anybody have any questions in the audience about the budget? And the board has no questions, I guess we could close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing at 7:39.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported that we close the public hearing. Is there any further questions from the board or out on the floor? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? I have one. I would like to add under the consent agenda. We would call it C3, will be the M&M concrete job in the park. We're not asking the board to approve it. We're asking the board to approve that it'll be on the check run. This is a expense that comes out of the park budget. So, Cindy, do you have anything to say about it, or just that we're doing it because we're trying to get it done before the weather sets in?
Correct,
And-
and we need a check for the deposit.
And this is just, it's going to be a check run on there of $2,300 for the deposit for the job. And this is to do ADA. I'll let you explain it.
I'm Cindy Boda, the Chair of the Park Commission. We're making, we bought cornhole games a year and a half ago, something like that. And we're making the concrete under the one set to be ADA accessible. So the specifications, everything will make someone who wants to use them accessible to anyone who's handicapped or in a wheelchair. Or, so we've been trying to get it together to get that concrete done and been trying to get some bids, but it's kind of down to the wire now. That was the only bid, which was really good. It's the same company that did our cement work in the dog park last year. So we're confident in their work, but we needed a deposit. They want to start tomorrow, actually, and try to get it done this week before the weather gets really cold. So,
So all you're asking for is us to let a check be
to
cut
do a
into
check
this
for the
check
deposit to the
for
company.
park, out of the park budget.
Right. We weren't able to ask for it 2 weeks ahead, so, or by last Thursday, we weren't even sure we were gonna get it started this year, so.
Okay, well, we don't need any more on that right now. Just,
Okay.
I want to add that to the agenda, and that's what it's about. I guess when we get down to consent agenda, we may need more discussion at that time. So is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted with the addition of item C3, adding check, Park Commission check to the check run.
Support.
It's been moved and supported that we accept the consent agenda with the addition of C3. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the approval of the October 21, 2019 minutes. They're in your packet.
If there are no deletions or additions, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from October 21st, 2019.
I'll support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported that we approve the minutes of October 21, 2019. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to talk about anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have C1, the October 2019 Park Commission minutes. We have C2 is the October 2019 Election Commission minutes. And we have C3 is the M&M concrete in the park. Authorization for the check. And I think Cindy just explained it. So there's no questions on the consent agenda, a motion to accept would be in order.
I'll make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported that we accept the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to disbursements, we have invoices for $144,876.15. We have accounts payable of $267,252.91. We have a direct payroll deposit of $29,843.63. We have a EFT payments of $10,610.19. We have a tax account payment of $17,769.53 for a total disbursement of $470,352.41.
I'll make a motion, we pay all the disbursements in a total amount of $470,352.41.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported that we pay the bills in the sum of $470,352.41. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Batsalis?
Yes.
Ms. Babel?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Freehand votes yes.
Motion carries, we pay the bills. Now we're moving on to old business. Appeal to the Township Board from the Tomlin family burials in the family plots. We postponed this from 2 weeks ago. We tried to go out and look at some other grave sites. I guess that didn't work out.
No, his wishes is to be buried at Rose Hill, in the family plot. With one urn.
You want to go to the mic if you want to speak?
Hi, Matt Trenke is my name. But yeah, Craig's wishes to be buried at Rose Hill in the family plot, which was approved. I did some investigation, and this is kind of a common thing. This is not an uncommon thing, what he's doing, what he wants. So,
You said just Craig?
just Craig.
Just making it clear.
Yep,
But
that's,
that's changing the thing that was,
What's that?
but that changes what you were talking about before, correct? Because it was two people in one earth.
it's just one urn with Craig.
Dad, my dad.
All right, let me speak for a minute. What we're here to decide is that, can we have one direct cremation on top of a direct burial? And our ordinance says you can. It's going to be up to this board to make, that's what we were asked to make the decision of that, not about, I know at one time you did, it was come up that it was to be half and half, and that's two people. No.
It's not.
But if it's, we are allowing one cremation per direct burial, or two cremations on a plot. That's how our ordinance reads. And that's what we were asked to decide. You appealed to us in your letter. That's what we want to know, if we allow that, and we do allow that. But it's up to this board, so somebody on the board is going to have to make a motion one way or the other, or do you want to hear more testimony, or?
I would like to speak to that.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gail Tomlin-Slinsky, the daughter of Norman and Dorothy Tomlin. We sent you my sister passed out a packet that we put together for you. Last time, emotions got really, really high, and we didn't really present the facts that we felt should have been presented. So if you'd give me 10, 15 minutes, I'd like to do that. First off, we found the power of attorney, which is your paper 1. And it states, and if you want to look at number 11 and number 26, it says that I am in charge of my mother's burial in the plot. And then the second page is the last will and testament, where I am in charge of my mother's estate. So those are the first two there.
What did you say it says on item 6?
Item 11 and 26.
Okay.
In the first one, the last,
Oh.
the power of attorney.
And I agree with all that.
Mhm.
But the decision that was asked to this board to make, do we allow a direct burial,
Okay, yeah, I'm just
a
pointing.
cremation on top of a direct burial?
Correct.
That's what we were asked to, that's what you appealed, correct?
Not in what we received from the sexton. No, that wasn't the letter we received from the sexton.
Okay.
So, and I'll get to that if you allow that. Okay, the number 3, page 3, was where people had trouble figuring out the pictures we showed. This is actually from the township, the different plots with the stones that are on the plots. Okay, page 3, it's just a diagram, kind of is a little better than the pictures that we had from before.
Is he asked to be buried on Norm or Dorothy?
Who's that?
Craig?
I'm going to get to that down in the sexton's part, if I can. Okay, so after number 3, I want to kind of go through what transpired for us from the beginning. And I know Jennifer mentioned that they're the Tomlin plots, and I went up to the township and spoke to Wendy up there. And she informed me that my brother and his wife were going to be put in one urn between our parents. That's what I was informed. And at that point, I went to talk to my brother Gary and my sister Wendy, and then Wendy and I talked to Randy Young. And then I contacted Paul Merchant, at Bauer and Rose, and he told us that we should send a certified letter. So that's number 4 that we sent to you to the sexton, our certified letter on 8/20. Okay,
Okay.
and then the next page, number 5, is the response from the sexton, and this is what he granted. Craig and Sandy Tomlin in a single urn to be placed between Dorothy and Norm Tomlin. That's the response from the sexton. And then at that point, we contacted our lawyer, Tammy McGuire, and she drafted a letter and delivered it to the township. And then we had the board meeting, and it got kind of emotional for everybody at the board meeting, understandably so. But when I went back to the township, I think it was Thursday or Friday, and spoke to Wendy to find out if the meeting was going to transpire tonight, and she said, yes, it is. So I said to her, well, how do you decide who's going to buy, who's going to purchase something? And that's number 7. That's the form that is filled out, page 7 in our packet. It says change of designated name or occupants of a burial spot. At that point, I said to Wendy, can I see my brothers? And she said, there isn't any. Jennifer did it on the phone. So that's the letter that has to be filled out in order to grant your wishes, from what I understand from the board. Is that correct, Cindy? Is that, I guess I'm asking.
not involved in the process.
Oh, okay, all right. That's what I was told when I went on Friday. Okay, and then if you look at what the sexton had said, that's ordinance 195-9A, and it says that there can only be one burial in one urn. So what you're saying is now that that's changed, but that's not what we were here for. Okay, that's not what we were here for 2 weeks ago. We were here because it was 2 in 1. And how can you change something without notifying everybody? I guess that would be my concern. Because it says right there that the sexton approved that.
Yeah, well, evidently, that wasn't right.
But that's
It
what,
says he's got it one single urn. Do we know what's in the urn? Do we go?
yes,
through
it says it right in there. It says that when you look at his letter, which is the response, number 5, it says Craig and Sandy Tomlin's ashes in a single urn to be placed
Well,
between
that was
Dorothy and
his
Norm.
interpretation. I think he was interpreting the single urn. To the 2
Okay.
people or the half people that were going to be in there, I don't know.
Okay.
But what you're asking this board to decide is, do we allow one cremation on the direct burial?
Okay, so then it's
That's all,
changed.
that's how I interpret it. Maybe somebody else on the board has some other input to it, but, I mean, we listened to all this 2 weeks ago. I
Okay.
think we all got a pretty good picture of what's going on here.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the Craig and Sandra, how he looked into that, if it's the single urn is what, we're not putting 2 urns in there on one plot, that we're not doing.
no, that's not what they were saying. They were saying put 2 burials in one urn, or 2
Right,
cremations.
well, I don't
in
know
one
if
urn.
our sexton understood that, or, I don't know where that is.
Okay,
And the ordinance doesn't specify
No.
that there could be 3 in one urn,
the ordinance says 1 cremation, 1 urn,
a cremation in one urn.
correct.
But the cremation can be any amount of ashes.
Well, it doesn't say that, though.
It doesn't say
It
that.
doesn't say it doesn't.
It says 1 cremation, to me, in my mind, that would be 1 person. but-
Well, anyway, we came to a conclusion, or my conclusion would be, we feel that that they did not follow the proper protocol because because of the forms, and the participants weren't notified. On the form, every participant was notified whether you want it to happen or not on form number 7, page 7. We were told to follow the bylaws, and we were told lots of times, and which the sexton did not follow the bylaws clearly. And we have proven that the procedures were not properly followed on several occasions. Not only this one, there's another one that's going to come up eventually too, but that's the main one that we're here for tonight. I guess my brother and my sister and I want to thank you for your time. I know you put in lots of time on this.
We've discussed this for 2 weeks.
And I understand that, and I'd like to thank also Randy Young, because he was going to donate a plot,
Correct.
and also Copal shots, yes. The Copal shots also had 4 plots that were right there by my parents' plot, and they offered those also. But we just want to thank you for your help. You know, you're going to
I
make
mean,
your
it's
decision.
a tough situation that the
It's
board
no,
is
it's a
in.
no-win for everybody. It's
And
destroyed the
we all swore
families,
to
what's
uphold
happening.
the
It's a
ordinances
shame.
of the township.
Correct.
I mean, that's how I feel about it. I mean,
Right, but according to what your Saxton sent us in that letter, that's not what he said.
well, that's what we're here to say now, that we allow one cremation on top of a direct burial.
But that's not what they were doing.
Well, they haven't done it yet, so it's not done.
But, so you can change it in the middle of it when we had it sitting, waiting to come back tonight?
Well, Craig's not ready to be buried.
No, I know that.
I mean, you know, I mean, I hate to say that like that, but I mean, he's not, I mean, we have time on this. I mean, I don't know. Does anybody else on the board have any input to this, or? Bob, do you have any?
I have a few questions that I'd like to see if I can get clarified. Is a plot, is that considered property? Is it considered property of the person that has it, or the person that had
No,
it?
the township owns the property. You just actually have the burial rights on that property, I believe is how it's stated.
That's correct.
Okay, so when you buy the plot,
It's owned by the township.
you're just
The
buying the
property
plot.
never
It's not the purpose of the
belongs to
property.
you.
that
Burial
have.
rights.
The burial rights to the
Burial rights.
property. I guess, I mean, even before we go into the ordinances that has come up, I was talking with Herb last week before we left, and I guess the question came up with, who is the owner of that plot? Who owns that plot? Who can make a decision on it? You know, back in 1918 or whatever, we had a gentleman that bought the plots, assigned a person to be his power of attorney, which would have been
Our
your mom and
great-grandfather.
dad.
It passed down from our great-grandfather to our
To your mom and dad,
grandfather to
okay.
our parents, yes.
So then, her
And
mom
my-
and dad passes it down to her
Correct, that's what
to
happened.
make the decisions as far as the power of attorney and who has the rights for that. And with what she gave us today, if you look at number 3 under the real property owners, it specifically states a plat. If you go to number 11, it does talk about to adjust, settle, compromise, submit to arbitration, any accounts, debts, disputes the matter. I mean, it goes in and talks about the property part, and that's why I asked about the property. If you go on to 26, it pretty much talks about all the funeral arrangements. So I guess my question to the board is, does Gail have the right to determine what happens in that plot? I mean, it was passed down to her. The power of attorney was passed down to her. She has
I think
signed
that becomes-
documentation.
I think it becomes a civil matter within your family. You're the administrator. If you say, you know, you're gonna have to go to court or something, or have a judge decide it, or seek legal counsel or something on this. All we're being asked is, this is our ordinance, are we allowing it? I mean, are we gonna do case by case, everybody that comes in here?
No, we don't.
You know what I'm
expect-
saying?
Yeah.
This is what this has opened up.
Correct.
I guess, you want me to speak up there?
Yeah.
I guess what we're trying to say is there were a couple things that were broken. There wasn't a form filled out by them. And if you see that form, if it was properly filled out, went by the proper procedures, we all would have been notified. And we weren't notified. So that's
I
why
guess,
we're
how do we
here.
know to notify all you people?
But if you read that form, it does say that they have to notify us, and they have to sign that they notified us. They never did. Now, we came to you because we tried to do as a family and work it through. But I just think the form wasn't filled out, so we brought the will to try to prove who owned it. So we're here now. And I understand that you want one cremains and one burial, but we need to have the proper protocol to follow each time. And if it's not, how can it be done properly? How can you say, it's okay to do it because you didn't fill out the form? But everybody has to have the same way to do things.
Are you familiar with this form, Cindy?
I'm not sure.
either.
I don't know what you have.
I think this is our new process that. if
I
you-
asked her when it started. She could not give me a date, so I asked if there's a date and when it started, she wouldn't answer me. I asked if there was a form available that they filled out. There was no form. It was done over the phone. So all we're asking is there's got to be protocol to follow to do this. Your bylaws state, as we pointed out, one cremains and a burial in
That's what we're gonna decide
one
tonight.
plot. And we agree with the bylaws. But we're saying they didn't follow protocol.
So what do I do now?
I don't know. The sexton didn't either because he didn't know the bylaw. So here we are. We got two mistakes.
What do you want to speak if you do?
You know, this thing can go in circles and
I
circles
understand.
and circles forever.
Yes,
And one half will agree, the other half won't,
yes.
no matter what we do up here.
That's
As far as I'm concerned, our section, Blaine, you've all used the right information. You can put a cremation in with a full body. Here's what he told you. All of a sudden, half said no, the other half said yes. Right back where we started from. And like I said, we could sit here all night, all week.
And we're
You know,
not
and then we
trying
could
to,
sell
we're
it. So,
just trying
As far
to,
as I'm concerned, our section give you the proper and correct information about putting a cremains in a grave of a body.
okay.
And that's where I stand on it. He was right. Now, maybe, you know, most of you people don't agree with it, and I'm sorry that's that way, but that's the way I feel about it.
Okay.
Did you look at the letter that we received from the township, where he said right there that it's reserved the remains for Sandy, Craig and Sandy Tomlin in a single urn to be placed between Dorothy and Norm? That's what we were here for.
To put the body, the cremains between.
In his letter that he sent us from the township.
And as I said, I buried a brother between my mother and my father, and they don't argue.
Yeah, but your brother called you,
Yeah.
too.
We had your own.
I
Tell
think
me
what
some-
you're saying here is that the circumstances that's changed, like you announced up there, now it just wants to be Craig. So maybe we need to have another one submitted, another application submitted.
That's correct. It
And
has to
then-
go through the form. It has to follow
But I still
protocol.
want to, tonight, I still want this
Yes.
board to make a ruling on, are we still allowing one cremation on top of a direct burial? That's the original question that came to us.
Yes, that's right.
And we're gonna, if we can get a motion to do that, we will do that, and then, I guess, being as though the circumstances have changed, then you can submit a letter saying that it's just for Craig, and we'll
You
go
mean
from
you
there.
have to fill out a form?
It's the form, it's
Well,
number 7.
Still have to fill out the form, but that's what you're saying, we'll fill out the form. But as far as you guys, you know, if you, Gail, you're in control of the estate, and you're saying that, like Angela said, is it property? I know you have to put it in your trust,
Correct.
so.
But when they
If
fill
that's the
out,
case, that's not for this board to decide
Okay.
that. That's your family. You guys are gonna have to deal with that within your family. If you have control of the estate, then I would seek my legal counsel to give me my definition of what my powers are. Not this board.
right,
We shouldn't be
yes.
running this
it's-
all over
Yes, yes.
No,
the TV.
We're fine with that.
I was just saying that.
Right.
It changed from when we were here.
Okay, so then, is that acceptable with you guys to, because it is changed now from what?
to fill out paperwork then?
Well, just another request, like what you did the letter here.
Okay, I have this letter of approval already, so,
No.
so if we just change it to only my dad, there's no.
That's probably
problem?
what I think would
No,
probably be.
you have a form,
Number 7.
number
Yeah, I got the
7.
form right here.
They
I
need to
don't-
fill that
I
out.
think this pertains to, we went through the cemetery, 6, 8 years ago, and now you cannot buy a plot in the cemetery without putting a name on it.
Right.
When your great-grandfather bought these,
Did you
they
fill
plots,
that
8
form
plots,
out, Jennifer?
they,
Actually, I did. I filled out a form and I actually called Sexton and.
Because Wendy said there was no copy of it. I was not given.
well, we'll have her fill out the both forms if that's what it takes, and then before we approve it. But I do want to
Thank you.
see if we can get a motion from this board to uphold our ordinance, to,
Also
One
move.
question, just one question I wanted to ask Mr. Bodett. Now, when they put the urn, it's only an urn, is that correct? There's no marker, there's no headstone?
we're not here to decide the marker right now. We're
All I know
here
is
to
on
decide the direct.
my mom and dad's grave, my brother was buried, the military came back and they put a military plaque where his body was, which was at the top of the head of the grave. He sits right in between the two of them. Now, they put a plaque out here, I'm not sure. Probably would.
Our decision tonight is just gonna be for the,
Second question I have, when we left, you guys did a great job on trying to resolve everything, and you made a suggestion, you asked Craig, my brother, you said, if we can find a comparable place, would that be suitable to you? And I thought I heard him say yes. And now we have 4 plots directly next to my mom and dad, and that's not suitable.
it's his opinion, I mean. What can I say?
That's where he wants to go, so then it's gonna have to be on top, buried. He wants to be buried in the family plot, that's what he wants to be.
Okay, so did you make the motion?
I made a motion.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second to,
I do have a question though on
Okay.
the motion.
all right,
Is the motion, has nothing to do with the protocol that was followed? The motion is just our ordinance, can we place one cremain on one plot? So disregard the protocol that was followed? Is that what the motion is?
I believe so, yes, I think it should be that we submit a new letter. You'll have to include that in your motion, correct, Bob?
You can make any motion you want to. The motion can be to basically, any applications should be reviewed, and we are reaffirming the ordinance as it stands. If the ordinance requires an application form, then it would be up to you to submit whatever application form. If it requires notification, then it would be notification. What happens after notification is not in the ordinance. So there's nothing in there that says there has to be agreement. All that it says is you have to fill out an application, it has to meet these criteria, and then you need to, if it requires notification, I think it does on the form. So that potentially could be the motion, is that we reaffirm the ordinance and require any individuals seeking to add a cremation or urn to a site to have to follow the ordinance.
Okay, is that good with, you understand that, Ed?
Yeah.
Devin? All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, it's 6-1.
And again, my no is basically on the protocol that was followed to get to this point. Once all the paperwork is the way it should be, then I would change my vote. But at
That's
this
how we're
point,
gonna do.
but at this point, with the protocol, there's been no application filled out at this point. So, with the protocol that's been filed to this, that's what my no vote is on.
Okay. So the application you had for the 2 is null and void, and you have to submit a new one and fill the paperwork out.
Okay.
That's what the motion is saying. Okay? And we voted? Sorry. Now, I'd like to make another motion along the same lines. I would like to make a motion that we, as a board, appoint a committee to look into these ordinances in the cemetery. We couldn't do this beforehand because we had to rule on the existing ordinance. To look into the ordinance to see, to do some more definitions. I would like to make it Cindy Paparelli, our sexton, and maybe one other person. It could either be an at-large or a board member, or we can appoint somebody. Is anybody volunteering to be on that? Well, then we'll appoint somebody. We'll find somebody to be on that committee. That's my motion.
I'll support it.
I'm on enough things.
I'll support it.
All right, it's been moved and supported that we appoint a committee to look into the ordinance on the cemetery and maybe some definition on what's going on there. So it could all change within a given amount of time. So we have a motion, we have a second. Everybody understand what I'm talking about?
Yep.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to old business 2, property liability insurance renewal.
Just give me a
Thank you.
second.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
We have that before us. It was through Burnham and Flowers. It's under old
It's
business
OB3.
2.
OB3.
That's old business too, right?
We don't have the, we're skipping over that. It's just- We don't have the, fuel for last week. It was only like $20 more than this year. It wasn't for this year.
It's
That's the only quote
OB3.
we had. That's the only quote we had.
OB3.
There's nothing wrong with it then.
OB3.
Right here.
It's, you have it as OB3.
Okay, so what we're asking for is, at the October 21 meeting, John Johnson from East China Township Liability Insurance Carrier, Michigan Township Participating Plan, presented a renewal proposal for the 2020 property and liability coverage. Motion was made to postpone until the next meeting. Each board member received a copy of the proposal. Action required, consider renewal of the 2020 policy from the Burnham and Flower. Did everybody have a chance to look that over?
How much difference is that from last year?
There was hardly any,
It's about $150.
yeah.
And that was, John made mention at the time that that was because some of the properties that are covered actually have increased in value.
Okay.
That was the rationale.
It's not much increase either.
And also, we're in that, with the power plant, we're in a progressive, getting a
Dividend.
dividend back from them. I believe it was just under $1,000 this year, and then we got grants. Didn't you get grants, $2,500 from the power plant?
We've gotten 3 grants from the.
3 of them already.
Since, I think the first time we applied was 2014 or 15. So we've gotten it 3 times, and there's an application in right now for the 4th one.
So, that's where we're at with that.
I just got mine today, so.
I'll make a motion that we renew our insurance policy through Burnham and Flowers for our property and liability insurance renewal. Is that a 3-year?
It's 1 year.
It's a 1 year? Okay.
It was 15.
I'll support.
Since
It's been moved and supported that we renew the policy from Burnham and Flowers. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, so you'll want to determine if you want any of the options. So
Yeah, the side
the
stuff.
coverage options.
Yeah, I don't-
because We'll need to know that before I can send that in.
Yeah, I don't think we took any of them last
I
time.
didn't take any, which we have done in the past with the insurance. But this time we decided we had them give us a price with no conditions.
And we can always add those things later if we decide we want them, correct? I believe that's what he told
You
us.
know, that's what I was thinking.
Would you include the?
No, he was stating that if we change our mind, want to add a couple, 3, these additions, all I gotta do is call Burnham Flower, get over
Right,
with him.
we can add that to our policy.
He'll add it to the policy.
In the motion, would you include the actual cost, Mr. Petzold?
I don't have that in front of me. I don't know what the,
It's on that, isn't it, Cindy, on your
15,000.
I didn't put it on the cover. I didn't know if you were considering any of the options. But from last board packet, it's $15,690 for the base
Okay, the
coverage.
renewal will be for $15,690 for the base coverage, and if the board opts to add any coverage, we can call Burning Flowers at the time and add it.
Do we have a second?
I'll support.
Supported by Debbie. Any further discussion?
Mr. Horn already supported it, actually.
I thought Horn supported it.
Mr. Horn already supported it.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right. So roll call, please.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mrs. Babel,
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock.
Yes.
Freehand votes yes. Mr. Boda,
Yes.
Mr. Patsalas.
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
all yes.
Motion carries. We renew the insurance. All right, moving on to new business 1, Charter Township of East China Township 2020 budget adoption.
What you have, and it doesn't have a number attached to it, but you were given that this evening. It's a resolution. Resolution 21, 2019, to adopt the 2020 budgets for the general fund, capital projects fund, and debt services fund. That resolution, it begins to transition us to what we intend to do in the future, and that is to completely implement the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act 621, which basically controls us for, as a local unit of government, for a charter township. So the resolution has a number of whereases in here. It includes the actual, an allocated millage and miscellaneous revenues totaling, which is how you generate that, the millage times the assessed valuation is how you generate your revenue, and that's what is now in, or will be in the budget itself. It will show the revenues that would be generated, other than the miscellaneous revenues, the revenues that would be generated by an allocated millage of 3.8868 mils, and that was on your sheet before. That includes all the millage with the exception of the millage for the water and sewer bond. It includes the fixed bonds. It does not include the water and sewer fund that is being sunset at the end of this year. And you have those millages before you. So this particular resolution not only indicates what the revenues are and what revenues will be generated by the allocated millage, and that's the part that you have control over. It can't exceed 5 mils. But included in there is the debt service and the capital projects fund. So we've rolled the debt service and capital projects fund into the budget and into this particular resolution.
Okay.
And at the end of the resolution, you can see where it actually specifies what the millages are. So this resolution actually levies the millage.
Where's the resolution?
Do we have a copy of
I
that?
don't have a copy of that resolution. Do you got one?
I don't have one.
I don't have one either.
Couldn't find it.
I don't have one, but I can make a copy.
Okay.
4 copies.
I was looking all over.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
I didn't say nothing.
Well, I think the reason it's not in your packet, we didn't know if the board was gonna make some changes from the public.
Oh,
And that's why we didn't do the numbers, but Bob had presented one. You made one up for yourself, right?
Yes, we actually developed
what it
the,
was is, see, on our original.
on Friday, we developed the, we looked at the Uniform Budgeting Act, and we wanted to make sure that a resolution that we adopted, and when we adopted the budget, that we were moving towards compliance, so that if the auditors have any questions, and we did submit our proposed resolution for review, and he felt that the auditors should have no problem with this particular resolution. Unlike previous resolutions that we looked at in previous motions in 2017 and 2018, this one specifies the millage rates. And that's what's recommended, that you include in your resolution the revenues generated by the millage rate that you are proposing to allocate or to implement or to levy, and that you also specify that you're adopting a budget that includes those revenues. So I apologize for this. I thought that may have been added to the material for tonight. But as Mr. Simon mentioned, we weren't sure if there were going to be some changes. I know we did have the one change, and the budget and this resolution does include that capital projects change that you were asking about.
Okay.
But there's nothing new in there, in the resolution, although I would like someone to read it. I'll be happy to read it. So instead of,
Oh, give him his back, okay.
so instead of just a simple action to approve the budget, what you're doing is, via this resolution, you're reviewing the budget, you're approving the budget, and then you're allocating the millage.
Okay.
So with your, I would make a motion to adopt the following resolution, and I will read it. Resolution 21, 2019, to adopt 2020 budgets for the general fund, capital projects fund, and debt service funds, County of St. Clair, Michigan. Minutes of the regular meeting of the Township Board of Trustees of East China Township, County of St. Clair, Michigan, held in the Township Hall on the 4th day of November 2019 at 7:30 p.m. The following resolution was offered by Freehand and...
I'll support.
Okay. Supported by Mr. Blackstock. Whereas under the provisions of the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act 621 of 1978 for local units of government in Michigan, all budgets for the general fund, capital projects fund, and debt service funds must be adopted by the legislative body, which is the East China Charter Township Board of Trustees. And whereas the East China Charter Township Supervisor has submitted proposed 2020 budgets for the general fund, capital projects fund, and debt service funds using a cost center approach in accordance with the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act, Public Act 621 of 1978, and whereas pursuant to MCL 42.26, notice of a public hearing on the proposed budget was published in a newspaper of general circulation on October 30th, 2019, and a public hearing on the proposed budgets was held in the East China Charter Township Hall at 7:30 p.m. on November 4th, 2019, and whereas estimated township general fund revenues for fiscal year 2020, including an allocated millage of 3.8868 mills and various miscellaneous revenues, excuse me, shall total $1,728,073. And whereas the East China Charter Township Board of Trustees is authorized to levy and collect general property taxes on all real and personal property within the township upon the current tax rolls up to 5.0 mills for general operations and up to the amounts necessary to service bonds voted by the electorate. Now therefore be it resolved that the above recommended 2020 general fund, capital projects fund, and debt service funds be adopted in compliance with the State of Michigan Public Act 621 of 1978, which amends PA 2 of 1968 entitled the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act, and be it further resolved that the East China Charter Township levies the following millages for the 2020 fiscal year. East China Township operating 2.5691 mills, capital projects 0.8178 mills, 2013 A capital improvements bonds 0.3250 mills, that's fixed. 2013 B capital improvement bonds 0.1750 mills, that's fixed. That's a subtotal for operating of 3.8868, and that just by reference is a decrease of 2.85% from the previous millage rate. Water plant bonds 1999 A and B, and these are fixed, and that has a separate millage of 0.6022, and that will be paid off for a total township levy of 4.4890 mills, which is a decrease overall of 5.35% in millages. All resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution be and the same hereby are rescinded.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion on the budget? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Freehand votes yes. Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mrs. Babel?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Patsalos?
Yes.
Mr. Boda?
Yes.
All yes.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to new business, 1A, Resolution 19. Whoa, we got a problem here. Oh, that's 20. Okay, 19-2019, property transfer affidavit penalty waiver. Are you know about this, Bob, or Cindy? Is this something that came into you?
No.
What it is it's a penalty. They want us to waiver it. This would be, assuming from our assessors, from Bill Griffin, the assessor. It's a $200, $5 a day, or a maximum of $200 for failure of buyer to file property tax transfer affidavit within 45 days of the transfer. It permits the local governing body to waiver the penalty period under section 27B 1C and waiver the penalty described in section 27B 1C will have a minimal financial impact on the township. So is there any questions on this?
So basically, we don't have a resolution in place right now. He wants us to put a resolution in.
Correct.
Okay,
And the resolution's on the back.
okay. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, somebody want to read it, or?
Resolution 19, 2019, to waive penalties for failure to file property transfer affidavit, East China Township, County of St. Clair, Michigan. Minutes of a regular meeting of the Township Board of East China County of St. Clair, Michigan, held in the Township Hall on the 4th day of November at 7:30 p.m. President, have the following resolution was offered by myself.
I'll support it.
Bob?
Whereas Section 27B 1C of Public Act 415 of 1994 requires the imposition of a penalty of $5 per day up to a maximum of $200 for the failure of a buyer to file a property transfer affidavit within 45 days of any transfer of property rights. And whereas Section 27B 4 permits the local governing body to waive the penalty required under Section 27B 1C, and whereas the waiver of penalties described in Section 27B 1C will have minimal financial impact on the Township of East China. Therefore, be it resolved, the Township Board of the Township of East China, Macomb County, Michigan, hereby waives the penalty provisions of 27B 1C of Public Act 415 of 1994, and that this resolution shall continue in effect until such time as an alternate resolution is adopted by the Township Board, or unless Section 27B is further amended by state legislation. All resolutions and parts of resolution, insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution, be in the same day hereby rescinded. Township Board of Township.
Should that be
It
St.
should be
Clair?
St. Clair
Okay,
County.
okay.
That's a typo. We changed it on this one. We'll correct that on the one we sign. Okay, we have a motion, we have a support for the resolution. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Whoops.
Can you do a roll call, because we should
Okay.
have a resolution
All right, we'll
requires
do a roll
ayes and
call.
nays.
Roll call vote, please, on the resolution.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mr. Babel?
Yes.
Freehand votes yes. Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Mr. Patsalos?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Motion carries. They're all yes. Thank you. What is number 2 here, not submitted, Cindy, do you know it?
Don't.
It is submitted now. I think that was the,
The resolution?
I think it was the emergency repairs for Bree Road, and something was given to us today. Was that what it was?
That's 3.
That's 3.
No, that's 3, okay.
No, I believe something was submitted, but then it was pulled. I'm not sure what it was.
Okay, so we'll just skip 2.
What, rather than change the agenda around together, again, we weren't sure if it was going to come in, and so we needed to finalize the agenda, not really knowing if something was going to come in. So it did not come in as of Friday. So rather than
Do you want to just make
change
a
the
motion to
numbers,
omit item 2 under new business?
I can just, we don't need a motion.
Okay.
I can just make reference that this item was not submitted.
I'm moving on to new business 3, Bree Road Lift Station repairs. Our DPW supervisor gave us a letter here. This has to do with the Bree Road Lift Station. It's emergency repairs. We sent it out, they pulled it. It's at the shop right now. We did the same thing in 17 to the hospital lift stations. We don't know the price of the repairs because now they found that the impellers wore out, so they've ordered a new impeller, but they did the same thing on the one at the hospital. It's around $7,100. But, I guess we can't authorize a price. We don't have amount of money. We don't have a price. So I guess this is just to notify us that we're doing that. Am I correct, Cindy? Or we don't know what the repairs cost yet.
Well, just put down approximate cost, $7,132. See, he's got his letter here, there should be how much in price.
Well, I mean, regardless of, I know we want to watch our costs, but it's an emergency, so, they have to take the pump to the service garage and tear it all apart and see what it needs.
I think what he's looking for is a motion to authorize you in between meetings if an
Okay,
emergency.
to pay for it?
I
Make the
believe so.
decisions?
Right. Because it would be above your authorized amount to, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
I should mention that one of the things that the Uniform Budgeting Act does include, and we did not include it in the resolution, but I will be bringing a resolution to the next board meeting that would authorize the supervisor under emergency situations to spend money, to approve expenditures up to a particular amount. And
Yeah, we were thinking like 30,000, so.
So what you would do now, this would be a temporary measure, if you will, for something that we would want to have as an item within a resolution, allowing the supervisor for any situation like this to approve money with notification to the board after that expenditure is made.
You'll be bringing that to the next meeting?
Yes.
So in the meantime, I guess we're looking for a motion to authorize me to spend the money to repair this pump. We're estimating around $7,000, so maybe if we said 9 or something.
You want a motion on that?
Yeah, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we allow the supervisor to work with the East China DPW, in particular Blaine, the supervisor, as to what this cost might be.
Everybody hear what he said?
Okay, that's, okay. Really what, the appropriate motion would be to allow the supervisor to expend monies up to a certain amount
Yeah, but he
for
said
this
his-
particular
his
project.
know what it's gonna cost.
That's where,
Well, let's say, I mean, in 17, that's 2 years ago, it was 71. Let's say 10,000. I mean,
Yeah, that's a good figure.
Not to exceed 8,000.
not 10,000. Well, we don't know what parts it's gonna need in there.
Yeah, I understand that, but
Or whatever you wanna make your motion, that's fine with me.
It's emergency, it's gotta be done.
right.
but if you don't authorize him to do anything,
He
the
won't get
supervisor, then
Yeah.
it just comes to the next meeting,
Mhm.
so.
To go up to what, not to exceed what,
9,000.
90?
Nine.
Do you agree with 9, Don?
We need a motion, and we got the motion, are you making a
Yeah.
motion?
Yeah, it was
Yeah, I'll
as screwed
support.
up as it is.
All right, it's been moved and supported that we allow the supervisor to
Work with,
authorize up to $9,000 to repair this pump.
Who supported that?
Herb did.
Thank you, Herb.
Is there any further discussion? I guess roll call again.
Mr. Simons?
Yes?
Freehand votes yes. Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Petsalas?
Yes.
Mr. Boda?
yes,
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mrs. Babel?
Yes.
All yes.
Motion carries. All right, next, item 4, notary services. This was submitted by our clerk, Mr. Freehand. Maybe you'd like to
As the,
tell us what we're doing here?
as the commentary indicates, we currently have, we've provided notary services for free for a long time, and we now have a single notary in the office, that's Corinne. And this proposal is to have Wendy she's the deputy clerk, Wendy Meldrum, to be the backup notary. And what the request is that we would pay the $50 bond fee as well as the notary application fee for her. And she would be acting as a service to our residents. But corollary to this motion is also that we would continue to offer notary services free to East China Township residents, but affix a $10 fee for non-residents. So it's a dual motion. One is to essentially pay for her to become a notary, all the fees that are required, and provide insurance and bonding. And
That part's not new. We had that for years, but
Yes.
they've retired. The people that had the notaries have
Right.
retired.
so Corinne is by herself, and if she's not here and somebody comes in, we really don't have anybody that is
I support your motion.
like this.
Okay? We have a motion and we have a support. Does everybody understand what we're doing? Roll call, please.
Okay, that should, just a minute. Okay. Ms. Babel,
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock,
Yes.
freehand votes yes. Mr. Simons,
Yes?
Mr. Boda,
Yes,
Mr. Vatsalas.
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
all yeas.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to new business, item 5, St. Clair County Road Commission ditching on Bell River Road. I don't know if you're all aware, but we have some flooding problems on Bell River Road coming from the bike trail out to the road. The backyards are all flooding in there. We filled a ditch in on the bike trail at a request of a resident. It was a small little hand-dug ditch. In order to give them more leeway for places to drain, now we're talking Bell River Road here between the Conservation Club and, what is it, River Ridge subdivision there? Is that what's right?
Bell
there?
River Woods.
Bell River Woods subdivision. We're not going all the way to Bell River Woods subdivision, but we'd start down, well, it gives an address here, and I think it's relatively down by the Conservation Club. and ditch that out. We have $10,000 that's given to us by the county for ditching every year. So the road commission will pay the first $10,000. They're asking us to do the $19,348 with match funds. We kind of thought that the county would probably match half of that $19,000 with our match funds that we have. This was what was reported to me from the district foreman. He estimated this high, it could be less than that. So if it's less, it'll be less than the 19,000. So I guess what we're looking, ours is probably gonna be around, 9,500. Or the alternative would be to do our 10,000 and go as far as we can get with the 10,000, and then next year when we get the ditching money, continue on. That's kind of how we did the east side of Bell River Road. We did it in two different years. We did kick in a little bit of money to finish it up. But I'm just throwing it out to the board if they want to get the whole project done. Our district foreman said he could probably get to it yet this year. But we got to use that 10,000. I don't want to lose that.
We might as well get it done because we've had a lot of problems back in there.
Are they confident that ditching the road is going to help the issue
Well,
in the rear yards?
the problem there, Herb, is it'll give them 12 inches of fall from the railroad to the road. But where they built those houses in there, when they dug the basements, they put the dirt around the houses, and there's actually a little berm there that the water can't get from the backyard. But it'll be the homeowner's responsibility to get the water to the ditch. So we've given them a place to drain the water. And we've worked with the district foreman, Mike Zobowitz, on this quite extensively for the last year. He thinks this will help them, it'll give them, and we need to clean the ditches anyways. I mean, we do periodic ditching. I think last year we did Chamberlain. We ditched up there with some of that money.
Do we have money in the budget for any of this?
I would think that would have to either come out of the contingency fund for this year, which I don't think we've touched, or I guess we got to look at that. I mean, we can always go to the general fund, but I believe there's money left in the contingency fund that we haven't touched.
Excuse me, Larry. What side of Bell River Road are you talking about?
West side,
The west side?
yeah.
What location on the west side, please? You said from the Conservation Club?
Yeah, north.
2407.
Yeah.
2407.
That should eventually drain into that ditch going down alongside the conservation.
Yeah, I think that's where it drained. That's where we dug the other side. I didn't look at that address, but it's got to be right there close. But what runs the price up is because we have a lot of homes in there and we got to take driveways out.
Yep, get a culverts.
And if the culverts are not salvageable, then it's up to the township to buy new culverts for the ones that aren't salvageable. Some of them will be. I think there's one of them that's paved, so we'll have to do an asphalt paving. But that all runs the price up, but the longer we wait, I guess, the more it gets filled in. And the old, where Bretton's used to be, the whole front yard was flooded there this spring. I mean, it had 4 inches of water in it, and it's right there by the ditch. But it's up to the board, whatever way. I think if we don't decide to do this, I think I'm going to still do the $10,000 worth of ditching.
I think we should just go ahead and do the whole thing and be done with it.
You want to make a motion,
Yes,
Mr. Horn?
I'll make that motion, sure.
Okay, to authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign the St. Clair County Road Commission agreement for ditching on the Bell River Road, estimated $19,348 with the match money fund.
That's right.
We'll pay half of that though, right?
Well, that's what he said. We think we got enough in the,
So
we said there's enough in the
19,348,
match.
the 19,348 we're not responsible for.
Well, we could be, we've got match money left in there.
Yeah, but it says East China agrees to pay the remaining balance estimated at 19,348.
Correct. We're on the hook for the 19 if we don't have match money. If we've used the match money on other things, then it won't be there. I agree with Mr. Horn. I think we should,
I'll
Don't
support.
do it halfway.
all right, so it's been moved and supported that we do the ditching project on Bell River Road. And it's estimated that the township will be 19,348 with the match money fund. So whatever the match money fund we don't have, then we'll be on the hook for. The maximum we could be on the hook for is the total amount.
Yep.
So. All right, is there any further questions on that?
Mr. Freehan, did you supported that?
I supported it.
Yeah.
Mr. Horn made the motion, I supported
Yep.
it.
So if there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Ms. Babel,
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock.
Yes.
Freehand votes yes. Mr. Boda,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Patsalas.
Yes.
All yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 6, Charter Township of East China Hall Use Policy. I don't know, the rental of the hall is kind of, it's kind of gotten out of hand a little bit. You know, originally it said we're supposed to do Saturdays and we're doing Sundays, and
Just rule Sundays out and make them Saturdays and during the week.
well, then it comes to the fact that what we're getting, if we have to bring in the DPW in the wintertime to plow the snow, you bring in a guy, it's 3 hours at their rate. I mean, it's up to the board, whatever we want to do. Cindy, do you want to present what you got here, or talk about the rentals? I mean, we only had, we had 10 rentals last year for $750.
This past year, there were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rentals. Of those, 1, 2, 3, 4 are condo association meetings, which could easily relocate if need be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are showers type parties, and we have 1 pending Christmas party, which any decision tonight would not affect that. We would not cancel that on them. They've had it reserved since May. We would have to figure that out, but we wouldn't pull that. But basically, in general, there's 1 a month. We've had multiple issues with the alarm system. I've done quite a bit of research around other townships. I haven't found a single one that allows a rental without a staff person present. And none of them that have just a township boardroom meeting let that out. Sometimes they'll have a side room, a community type group or room that they'll allow, but not the township board meeting.
Will they still allow the people that play cards, I believe it's on Wednesday?
Right, so that's
Yeah,
how
that's
I'm.
a
They would
daytime
still-
activity.
It would still be,
That's number 2. Number 1 is just to suspend after hours and weekend use. And this would be the policy. Now, if the board has some special event that they want it to be open and allowed for, then someone would have to present to the board a special occasion, a special condition. But in this case, this will just be standard policy. If someone comes up, says, I want to use the township hall, we will only be allowing them to use it during the day. And only if it's accommodating to what we have with our meetings, because we hold our meetings in here too during the day. We would require everyone to submit some sort of, at least, reservation form for a daytime use.
So in other words, if somebody on the board had somebody that wanted to use, they could actually make a motion at a board meeting to allow it, but then one of the board members would have to be there to supervise the event.
I believe in the past that has been the case, that it has been brought to the board and a particular board member would then take responsibility for that
that
use.
was,
Do you remember that, Don?
yeah,
Yeah,
that was
I can't think of her name.
Delia's daughter.
Joe Mary.
Yeah, Joe Mary Baker. I think she attended something like about 10 of them, and the township paid her like $10 to be there, which she appreciated. And she did that about 10 times, and then she said she had other things she really should be doing and left the position.
So that was the practice years
Yep.
ago.
Mhm.
But like I say, we've got away from it with the alarm. I mean, we're given the rental, we're given a key to the person, the responsible person. I can assure you, every time the hall is rented, I get a phone call, and I have to come over here and silence the alarm. That's been going on for years. There's not too many that get through without tripping the alarm.
And I'm sure our insurance company doesn't particularly appreciate kind of a laissez-faire attitude towards renting
It
out.
was a consideration. One of the reasons that it was brought to my attention.
Tripped the alarm once.
This is stupid, well, they used to, oh, what the hell? The hell, it's for years they've been doing that.
I know, but do you want to be the responsible person to come over here?
We could all take turns.
It's fine with me. Everybody's going to take a turn.
I'll make Mr. Black like my person.
Or enough time getting here on Mondays.
Oh,
I mean, we almost have to figure $100 an hour, minimum of 2 hours, when we have to have an employee present.
Maybe somebody from the office might be interested.
You still have to
When
pay
the
'em.
office girls.
We still got to pay them.
Still gotta
Yeah.
pay 'em. Well, to
Still
be
gonna
honest,
be
with you,
3
I
hours
think,
pay.
I think this would be a moot point, because I don't think residents are gonna pay $100 an hour, because they want it for 3 hours, it'd be $300.
Right.
So, I mean, and we have to cover our costs, so the residents wouldn't even go for that.
no, they're not gonna go
So-
for $100.
I think for the little bit that the township hall is used for and what it is used for, like Cindy said, a couple of the condo associations, they can move that over. So I'm gonna make a motion that we suspend the after-hours and weekend use of the township hall, and continue the daytime use of the township hall, during regular business hours.
Support.
It's been moved and supported that we suspend the operation of renting out the township boardroom, and continue to let the daytime use during regular business hours. Is there any further discussion? Everybody understands what we're talking about? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
6-1. Next, we got the FEMA Hazardous Mitigation Program Grant, Resolution of Support. Cindy, do you want to explain this one?
Sure. So a while back, we did apply
You missed one.
through the Michigan State Police for a FEMA grant for hazard mitigation planning.
This one, I'll go back.
Our grant is specifically to complete the,
Excuse me for interrupting
Sure,
you.
uh-huh.
I missed the coastal management
Yeah,
planning
that's
grant.
it.
Is this?
oh, we can talk about that one first then.
Yeah, let's talk about that first, because that may have, I correct myself, item 7, coastal
Okay.
management planning grant opportunity.
Okay, this one was brought to my attention by our planner at Waitrim. This is a planning grant. It would not involve any development or construction. And it is in the year 2021. We did meet with DTE because a lot of the coastal management planning area is actually the St. Clair River, the St. Clair plant. So when we met with them, they heard the benefits and opportunities that come along with this grant and have agreed to partner with us for 50% of the match of the grant. Our planner suggests that to do a thorough planning study, we would allocate $50,000. So half of that would be $25,000 and half of that would be $12,500, which DTE has committed to as well.
Well, it could be a little bit more though, couldn't it? There's one other cost in there.
Well, if we decide to go ahead and submit the application, of course, Wade Trim does have a fee. They will do all of the work submitting the application, and that cost is $2,500. I did reach out to DTE today to see if they'd be interested in partnering with us on the application cost. I haven't heard back from them.
Well, it sounds from the email, it sounded like they would go whatever.
It does sound like they'll be,
But
yeah.
it has a lot to do with, it has all to do with restructuring, looking down the road when the Edison plant closes. What are some of the alternative usages for the land? Edison has been very agreeable to talk about, what the future use of that land may be. But this could lead to rezoning certain parts. We looked at one that DTE did they had some consultants that just did a rough look at it. There's a lot of things that could be done on that property, that size, but we're looking at 10 years down the road. This is not gonna be, but I think we owe it to our residents that we should be looking at alternatives. This may be a grant that we spend this money on that nothing ever really happens, but it gives the ideas, and it'll promote public hearings on the grant, so they'll have public input as to what they think the property should be.
I think the important part is, although construction and development that is planned out of this planning grant may not come to fruition as we see it during the process, but the long-range planning of, do we want to look at rezoning and partner with DTE as they go through that process? That'll allow us to, when the time is right, if it's a developer, if it's DTE, we've already been part of the process of determining what that's going to look like 10 to 20 years from now.
I got a question. I read through this thing twice. And the thing I'm gonna bring up, I didn't see either time I went through it. But the Edison, as much acreage as the Edison has got there with the old St. Clair power plant, if they take that down, the only thing they would need is a water plant that's over there to get over to their new plant.
No, that's not correct.
They would take the water plant out over there?
That's a water intake. No, that has to stay, but there's also a large section right in the middle that's owned by ITC, the mat. And ITC has expressed that they want to keep the mat. So there'll be a section of, we've got some pictures over, aerial pictures of, so it won't be all that property. There'll be, where you see the towers, the different towers that come across M29, all that land underneath there will be reserved for ITC, but it could be used for parking or something. You wouldn't be able to build a structure
The
underneath.
strange thing I had, never brought up right left, but I was thinking, why don't they put a boat harbor in there?
That's part of it. This is what the planners will tell us.
And, rent the spaces all like St. Clair does.
It's the pictures talked about condos on the river, some retail, some business,
Yeah,
maybe
saw
some light industrial. Right now, that property is all zoned I-1, heavy industrial.
Right.
So, this is just looking to the future. I mean, yeah, it's $12,000, $15,000 that we're gonna spend to do this, but.
But I just thought, a boat harbor would.
The question is, are we actually asking for an allocation of money, or?
We are.
What we require, in order to apply for the grant, it has to have a resolution of support of the board. So you're not going to expend any money unless you actually get the grant, but in order to apply, we need a resolution of support from the board.
This money wouldn't be expended until the next budget,
21.
So, your action, where it says none, it's for information only, but there is some action. It would be
Resolution for board
a
support.
resolution of board support.
Well, I take that back. I'm talking about the FEMA grant now. Got me confused.
Okay.
At this time, really what we're asking for is basically support of the idea of the project. There is no fee to apply. However, as you spoke, there is going to be a cost for our consultant to assist us with the application process.
You mentioned Wade Trim, and
Correct. And I just got that number. We met, and then afterwards, we found out that the cost for the full application development and submission is going to be $2,500. So we reached out to DTE, and I'm sure that they'll be able to work with us in getting that preliminary without, that way we'll bring them into the whole process, and they'll help us review the application before it goes in, and that they'll be a partner fully.
so our action should be to express our support for grant match funding and allocate how much?
Well, the max would be 2,500 if Edison doesn't help at all, but we
Right.
don't know what they're gonna
Yeah,
help.
I apologize that this was written before I got word back from DTE if they were even interested in partnering, and they have committed that 50%. So that's why it says for information. I wasn't sure if we were going to get that partnership, we probably wouldn't be proceeding.
And that's fine.
Yep.
We just want to make sure we all know what we're,
Yes.
what we're actually.
So I would revise that to say we're looking for support of the application process, including the cost for Wade Trim to provide the services of
And one
writing the
other thing to
application.
add to that too is the grant is gonna encompass some other properties besides just the DTE property. You know, it could be the property we have along here, it could be, you know, other properties that would fit into our master plan too.
Yeah, the coastal zone, I didn't include a map, but I could certainly share it with anyone who's interested. Encompasses all the waterfront and then a bump out, which includes all of the DTE property, and then it's kind of like a snail, it looks like.
Some of the surrounding property on the DTE.
Including our property here, as well as our vacant land behind us. So the idea is to maybe even get to the point of an addendum to the master plan so that it's a document that moves forward with whatever administration is looking at the
Just a
township.
living document.
It's a starting point, I say.
So do you need movement on this tonight, or can this wait till the next meeting and you have a firm yes or no from Edison?
We have a firm yes on the 12.5.
So.
We have that, but.
We have a firm
Yeah.
on that,
But the first step is the 2,500 to
yeah.
Let me
submit.
find
Is there a
dates.
deadline on this?
Yeah,
Well,
there are
there was a
dates.
deadline, December 20th.
December 20th, the application has to be in. So we were a little concerned if we waited until the next meeting to get
'Cause there's a
that
lot of work to do
approval,
before
we have
then.
less than 3 weeks to submit the application.
But you're sure the max is $2,500?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is
I'll make a
their
motion, we
flat fee
allocate
to do this application.
$2,500
Yeah, and
in the hopes that we get,
they've done this before, they've actually written this grant, so it's a very familiar process to them.
I'll support that.
Your support?
Yeah.
It's been supported, Mr. Boda. We have a motion and a support. Is this for the 2,500 and the 12.5 match? Or are we just looking for the 2,500 right now?
It's up to
well,
you.
you've got to have a resolution written, right?
I don't. That was for
Okay.
another grant that's coming up next.
Yeah, it could be for the future support if we receive the grant of the, whatever the amount is, $12,500.
Okay. We have a motion and we have a support for the 2,500 and the 12.5. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Patsalos.
Yes.
Mr. Boda,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
freehand votes yes. Mr. Blackstock.
Yes.
Ms. Babel,
Yes.
all yes.
Should we include where we're going to take that money out of, Cindy?
If you know where you'd like to.
Oh, we
take
don't
it
know.
from.
I guess we'll look, we'll research that.
Is there any money in the planning fund?
Probably not for operations because,
Because it
I
might
don't
be
know
good
offhand.
timing with our 5-year plan revision. If
Yeah.
we're looking at 2021, I don't remember when we adopted that 5-year plan. Or revised that 5-year plan last. May have been about 3 years ago, so.
Okay. All right, moving on, now we'll move on to the FEMA Hazardous Mitigation Program Grant Resolution of Support. That's item 8 under new business.
And this one was the one that requires the resolution of support. We submitted our notice of intent in October, early part of October. We've been invited to apply for a grant. So with that requirement is a resolution of support from the board.
And this is the 72,000 that we added to the capital budget.
Okay, and then, okay,
The
that's if we
match
get
rate.
it, right?
Correct.
Does somebody want to read the resolution?
I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution 20-2019, supporting an application for a hazardous mitigation grant for the Bell River Pump Station upgrade. East China Township, County of St. Clair, Michigan. Minutes of a regular meeting of the Township Board of East China, County of St. Clair, Michigan, held in the Township Hall on the 4th day of November at 7:30 p.m. The following resolution was offered by me and supported by,
I'll support that.
okay. Whereas the Charter Township of East China desires to apply for a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant Program 2019 to mitigate hazards related to the Bell River Pump Station, and whereas if the requested grant amount of $279,613.80 were awarded, there would be a township match requirement of $71,923.50. And whereas matching funds have been appropriated out of the East China Township Capital Projects Fund, and whereas the proposed Bell River Pump Station upgrade project hazardous mitigation activities would benefit East China Township by reducing risk of loss of sanitary services to residents, reducing hazards created by potential future flooding, and whereas Charter Township of East China Board of Trustees support efforts to mitigate flooding-related hazard in the township, now therefore be it resolved that the Charter Township of East China Board of Trustees resolve, one, that the Charter Township of East China supports the application for a hazard mitigation grant through the Michigan State Police Emergency Management and Homeland Security Division, and two, that the Charter Township of East China has participated in and formally adopted a FEMA-approved mitigation plan in the adoption of the 2015 St. Clair County Hazard Mitigation Plan on September 6, 2016. That the Charter Township of East China has identified the project as a priority for flood hazard mitigation, and four, that the Charter Township of East China is capable of providing matching funds out of the Capital Projects Fund. All resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution be and the same hereby are rescinded.
Okay, we have a motion, a resolution and a support. Is there any further discussion?
I'd like to change one word. It should read, and whereas if the requested project amount of, instead of the grant amount.
What number is that?
And the third, the second and where, or the first and whereas.
The requested,
It should read the
Project
requested
amount.
project amount.
Instead of grant?
Correct. The grant would actually be the balance of our match to the
Right.
project.
I'm sorry, what was that again? If the requested grant amount, change that, you said?
Change grant to project.
requested project amount of $279,000.
I'd just like to add in the discussion, we tried to do the Miser Road and the Bell River together, but we needed that the Miser Road done because of the bridge replacement. So all we did at the Bell River in Springborn was we did we're gonna do the boring underneath the river, the bypass. So we held off, and that's why we're waiting on this. I mean, this will be a pretty good thing if we can get it. It's over $200,000. So, and it looks pretty good. That's all I had to add, so is there any further discussion on Resolution 20-2019? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Freehand votes yes. Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
Mr. Patsalos?
Yes.
Mrs. Babel?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
All yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 9, Construction Board of Appeals appointments. We have a request to have the Construction Board of Appeals hear a case. Mr. Horn has been on it. He's not supposed to be on it, I guess. Were you on it, Don, that part when you weren't elected? Is that when you got put on that?
Yeah, I probably was when I wasn't elected.
When you weren't in office. Well, now,
And they never took me off of it.
so, and we only have one, so I've went out, reached out to some people trying to get a committee, and I've got 3 people that are willing to sit on it. So what I'm asking the board is to appoint these new members of the Construction Board of Appeals. And they are Jane Keister to a 1-year term, Larry Osterlund to a 2-year term, and Brian Roush to a 3-year term. And then when we have the board, they'll get sworn in, and then we can hear the case before them.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Jane Keister to a 1-year term, Larry Osterman to a 2-year term, and Brian Roush to a 3-year term to serve on our Construction Board
I
of
support.
Appeals.
Okay, you have support.
Okay, we have a motion and a support. Is there any further discussion?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Is there anyone else currently on this board other than Mr. Horn?
No,
That's it.
So it'll be these 3.
it'd be these 3.
I never had a,
Well, it's not your fault, Don. We didn't, I mean, I appointed you and the board approved you. It's just one of those things that we didn't, this board meets very, very sparingly. I mean, I don't think it's met once in 10 years.
we never ever had a meeting, so it
Yeah,
didn't hurt nothing.
so you didn't, no harm. Okay, so we voted on it, didn't we?
No.
All right. Everybody understands? So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're down to the last item under new business. 2020 MSUE Zoning Administrator Certification Training. Ms. Paparelli?
I'm requesting that we send our zoning administrator to this certificate training, and this is a fairly new project from Extension. It's kind of a partner project to the Citizen Planner program. We've already actually reserved a spot. It's hard to get in. They only have 60 spots every year, so we have reserved a spot. But this is looking to approve his time and expenses to attend in February. He says he's willing to go, and I've spoken to a few people who've taken this training, and they say it's really beneficial. And on a side note, we can submit for reimbursement for the cost of the program to our liability insurance par plan. It's
Where is
another
this
one of
at?
those.
Where's it held at?
Bay Harbor, Michigan.
The Bay Harbor?
One's in Port Huron and one is in just out west here. There's one in Port Huron,
What's that?
the classes she was talking about.
Oh, he said there's one in Port Huron.
Yeah, Michigan Road,
Not for this,
not that, no, that's,
not for zoning administrator. This is done only by Michigan State University Extension once a year, and it's always done at a remote location. It's an intensive 2 to 3 day workshop. Which one are you?
Where did you find that, Don?
I thought it was in the thing she sent.
The Citizen Planners, they had one in Port Huron, but not for this program.
Not the zoning
not
administrator.
this one.
Is it gonna be a one-night stay? Because it's only the 6th and 7th, so spend the night the 6th.
Correct.
So one-night stay
2-day
and mileage and food, right?
Correct.
It's gonna be $1,000 anyways.
We get 700 back, though.
Yeah, we'll get it back from
We'll
them.
get 700 back from the insurance.
I think it's a good thing. We should keep our, that's what we hired them for during the Fridays in the morning is the zoning administrator.
I'll make a motion that we approve our zoning administrator's trip to to attend the class of the 2020 MSUE zoning administrator certificate training with required mileage, hotel, per diem.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported that we allow our zoning administrator to go to the training, the MSUE zoning training. Any further discussions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blackstock,
Yes.
Ms. Babel,
Yes.
Freehan votes yes. Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Patsalos.
Yes.
Mr. Boda.
Yes.
All yes.
Motion carries. Down to announcements. Have no announcements that I know of.
Can I speak on your announcement? I know I should have done it during public comment.
Is it short? Yeah.
Very short.
Okay, go ahead.
You're trying to beat a record. Just so everybody knows, the park is closed now, and the bathrooms are all being winterized, except for the Sled Hill bathroom, which stays open all through the winter, so everybody, the public knows that there is a bathroom open in the main park. And the dog park parking lot stays open all winter 24/7, so, but the main park is closed now.
Thank you. All right, member comments. Mr. Horn.
I took a trip down Bryson Lane, that's gonna need some
We've
action.
already contacted them. I've had 2 calls this week, and they're doing it as soon as they can get to it. Probably be this week.
Yeah, it's got a few bad spots in it.
Yep.
It's got some brush alongside of the road, down further. It's hanging all over the road.
And we've already addressed that, and they're gonna get that as soon as they can trim it. That's on the, right there before you come to the bike trail. Yep.
And back, all the way back to the,
We're gonna
almost,
try,
almost
yeah.
to Woodland.
They're gonna try to get what they can get with that arm,
Mhm.
is what I told them.
Well, they'll get quite a bit, but
We don't have the equipment to do that.
that's all I have.
Mr. Pasales?
I don't have anything this evening, Larry.
Mr. Boda?
One thing, I'll probably get a lot of booze from those who are watching the meeting, but when was the last time we had a raise this board? I have to say it's been between 12 and 16 years.
It's probably closer to 20, probably.
Yeah, it could be close to 20, but I think it's about time that we start looking at getting a raise.
Do you want to take charge of that? Researching what the raises should be, or how do you do
Last
that?
one we-
How have
last
they
one.
done it in the past?
Hasn't been done in 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I wasn't here 20 years. How about you, Ed?
I
You're
wasn't
getting
here.
close, though.
I wasn't here either.
The usual procedure is to kind of look at
Other
surrounding
boards.
townships and other boards. And
The last one we had, I think it was 3%. That was,
A what?
it was 3% the last one we got, I remember that.
Okay. All right, yeah, you're right. Well, we can look into it. Anything else?
Maybe we ought to think about next year when we have fixing roads and stuff, that perhaps Puttigat Road ought to be repaved from 29 out to the township line.
What road, Weecore?
Puttigat.
We've discussed Puttigat, according to our district foreman and myself and the people that went on the road tour. We think we should wait until the Edison project is done. They're using that road heavily. It's actually a Class A road to the factory from King Road, but from the railroad tracks this way, it's a Class B road. But they're running a lot of empty trucks and stuff down there.
They're
Maybe
running a lot of
full,
empty
I don't know, but that was a suggestion from our district foreman that we hold off on that road for at least a year. So when you're on the board in 2021 or 22, you can bring that up. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Freehan?
I have nothing.
Blackstock?
Just go Marine City football.
Debbie?
You got it, he said.
And that's all I have too, is show up for the game. Friday night, we're playing Elmont.
Very nice Friday.
I wish the Mariners the best.
They haven't beaten yet Sunday.
Hopefully
No,
go
we
all
have
the
not beat
way.
Elmont.
So is there anything else?
No, no doubt.
If not, a motion
If we
to
win this
adjourn
game
would be in
down, we're
order.
gonna make some noise.
I'll make
but we're gonna
motion,
make a
we-
run.
I'll make a motion.
Oops, already got
They
it.
will.
Oh, okay.
9:20.
I hear you, oh, you're right,
I
I'm going all the
support.
way back.
You have a motion and support by Mr. Babel.
Motion and a support to adjourn at 9:20. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for the, again, a long meeting.